In a high conflict divorce situation, managing communications with a difficult ex is very problematic, especially when you've got kids. For people with kids, the best way to manage the communication is to use a co-parenting app, something like Our Family Wizard, which is one app that we love to recommend our clients to use. There are some other ones like App Close or Talking Parents, but any third-party app that you can use to control the narrative, to control the communication, so you are not talking face to face, which always brings up a lot of emotions, not always good ones, and also to avoid a situation where you are having to text back and forth or email back and forth, where a high conflict person is going to use those types of communications against you and harass you and drive you nuts. A third-party app will help you manage those communications. It also is really, really helpful. Our Family Wizard in particular is one that's great because it has something called a tone meter. So when you're in a high conflict divorce, both parties are going to be angry. Both parties know how to push each other's buttons. And so when your spouse sends you a really nasty message and you're ready to fire off a really nasty response in return, the tone meter will help warn you and say, hey, wait a minute, take a breath. Let's reread this. Here's another suggestion about how maybe you could say the same thing, but say it in a nicer way and not trigger the other person to come back with another nasty response. When you're going through a high conflict divorce, it is so important to make sure that you do absolutely everything you can to prevent your children from getting enmeshed in that conflict. Now, it's not going to be possible to completely guard them against every bit of conflict because kids sense things. They know when you're tense. They know when the other parent is tense. They know what's going on. But everything that you can do to avoid them being present when there is conflict between you and your spouse is so important. Kids don't need to be involved in the divorce. They are kids. Let them be kids. Don't bring them into the adult issues that you and your spouse have, because what's going to happen is they're going to naturally take a side, and they should be able to love both parents and feel loved by both parents and not feel that their existence in this world is part of the conflict. And that's unfortunately what happens with a lot of kids, is that they may know that you love them. They know that their other parent loves them. But when they start hearing you argue, even if it's not directly about them, they feel like they're the cause. And that should never be part of your divorce. Your children need to feel like they're just loved. Also, kids innately feel like they are part of each parent. I mean, it's true, your child is a part of you and is a part of your spouse. And so every time you say something bad about their parent, they feel like that's an attack on them too, even if they really can't, if they can logically say that's not true, they still feel it. And so every time you say your dad is terrible or your mom is mean and evil, now they feel like they're mean and evil or they're terrible. And that's never what any parent wants their children to feel. A lot of times when you're going through a divorce, you are hearing things about yourself that you know are not true. It's very common for one party to start lashing out at the other and saying all kinds of crazy things. And the natural reaction is to, of course, defend yourself. Often the natural reaction is to come back and say, well, you did X, Y, Z, right? And that may be true or not true. But the more that you can keep your calm in divorce, even when things are being thrown at you that you know are not true, the better position you're going to be. Don't get baited by your soon-to-be ex, because that's what they're trying to do. Everything that they say True or false is an attempt to bait you, is an attempt to manipulate you. Don't get pulled into that game. A lot of people don't really understand that a divorce is a lawsuit like any other lawsuit. So it starts with filing a petition for divorce. And that is a document that says, hey, I was married to this person and now I don't want to be married to this person anymore. And, we're asking the court to help us resolve it. Hopefully, we can work it out on our own. So that's the petition that gets filed with a court. There's no way to get divorced other than to go through a legal process. You got married through a legal process. To end that marriage is a legal process. So that doesn't mean necessarily that you have to end up in court, that a judge has to come to a resolution of your disputes. You still have the opportunity to resolve matters on your own. And in fact, in Texas, you are going to be required to go to mediation, which is a third-party negotiation where you try to resolve your disputes regarding division of assets and liabilities, regarding your kids. All of those things are going to be addressed in mediation first before you ever see the inside of a courtroom to try to resolve those issues. Honestly, 95% of cases get resolved in mediation, maybe more. Very few cases actually go to the judge to be determined, but all along the way, you have to be prepared for that possibility. We always hope that your case is going to get resolved by mediation, that you are going to take control of your life and you are going to come to a resolution with your ex about what needs to happen. But because it's a legal process, we have to be prepared by taking certain steps along the way so that if you do end up in court, everything has been done the way it needs to happen so that you are protected in that final hearing. If you're in a high conflict divorce, that is something that we can help you with. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. We'd love to talk with you and help you through this time in your life.